Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, a podcast about books, Catholic books, how we can guide our lives closer to Christ through reading really great spiritual stuff. How's that for an intro? Welcome back to A Seeking Heart. We have, speaking of welcoming back, we have a returning guest, Leslea Wahl. She is a fiction writer and she does young adult teen books. So we're going to talk today about Catholic teen books. Beautiful website. We've shared that in the past. Of course, I'll have that link in our show notes. But these wonderful group of writers over at Catholic Teen Books have a new anthology out called Ashes for Lent. Here we are recording on the Feast of the Presentation, and Lent is just mere 20 days away. Hard to believe. I love Lent. I'm kind of a Lenten dork, but that's beside the point. I just get very excited about this holy time. Leslea, thank you for coming back and sharing this anthology with us.
Oh, it's always so fun to chat with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear all about Ashes. So tell us a little bit first again for those who have not listened to the Catholic, the other Seeking Heart you were on when we talked about Catholic teen books. Tell us about Catholic teen books, that website, and then tell us about the new book Ashes.
Sure. So, it began a few years ago, quite a few years ago, when I had my first book came out, and I um, didn't realize there was a whole bunch of other authors who were all writing for Catholic teens, and we kind of met up on Facebook, and through a conference, somebody um, was presenting to said, "Oh, I love the idea of all these books, but I wish there was one place that they could all be found." And so we thought that was a great idea. So we began Catholic Teen Books. It was just a few of us, and now we're up to 16 authors, and we have
Oh,
books for in all genres, from dystopian to mystery, saint books, contemporary, historic fiction, and from ages from like fifth grade all the way up now through new adult, college age. So we have quite a selection of books, and we try to be a resource for families. So we have parental content guidelines about most of the books, or actually all the books, so people could really know what's exactly in the book, since, of course, obviously something that um, a younger child might want to read, isn't the same as what an older child, teen would want to read. So we have book packs and book clubs in a box, and we have newsletters. So we are always trying to think of new ways to help families find great adventures for their teens.
I love the parent guide, and that's one of the hardest things sometimes is you see these books or the kids are reading books, and you don't you want your child to be entertained. You want them to use their imagination, but you also want to protect them from what they might see or hear. We just kind of ran into this with my 17-year-old who has got a cognitive disability, and all her friends are watching Stranger Things. I know that's a I don't know if that actually started off as a book. I know that's a movie, but it has to do with the same kind of thing, the media, things our kids are consuming. And I was really grateful to have a way of reading about what was in this, what other parents thought, what the Catholic parents thought. And it does just seem, for at least Stranger Things, that it starts off okay for like a season and then it goes downhill quick for somebody who doesn't want their child to be exposed to really, really scary things or swear words. I walked in the door and she's deaf, but she had the luckily I think the Holy Spirit really parents better than I do and just kind of makes sure I get the things right. So she happened to have the volume on, which she never does. And we had, told her we didn't want her watching it, but typical teenager, we walk in and I just hear the S word over and over again. I'm like, okay, this is why I told you couldn't watch this. And that kind of guilt looking like, oh, I thought I thought I could get away with this, but I forgot to mute the TV. Anyway, long story short, I think it's great that you offer this ability, this resource for parents. So speaking of resources, Lent is coming up. I think many Catholics choose something to read to journey through
Mhm.
Lent with. And I got to be honest, I never thought of grabbing a fiction book. And for a teen, that makes a lot more sense than a nonfiction book. That takes you kind of have to really be in a certain place or a certain mindset, I think, to jump into nonfiction Catholic reading. So I
Mhm.
love that you've come together and found a way to give good content for Lent in fiction. So tell me about Ashes.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have this is our fourth anthology. Um, we had one called Secrets, Visible and Invisible, Gifts, Visible and Invisible, which was a Christmassy theme, and Treasures, Visible and Invisible, which has something to do with Saint Patrick relic. And so we had an idea that it'd be fun to do something for Easter or Lent, but we kind of was mulling around that idea for a while, trying to figure out exactly what to
Mm,
do. And so the more we thought of it, we thought this would be something good for teens because you're right. They often don't do the same kind of things we do, and for them, sadly, for a lot of teens, it sometimes is that's the time I give up something, and it doesn't get a huge lot deeper than that.
yeah,
Others are obviously more into it than some, so we thought maybe this would be a good way through the stories to show how you can sacrifice within your own life and grow in your faith through these fictional stories. And each of the stories has some discussion questions at the end, so you can they can really think about how these things affect their lives and so forth. So I think it's a really neat combination. And again, there's 10 authors in this anthology, so this is their largest participation, which is really cool.
that's
And
awesome.
there's stories, contemporary ones, there's historic fiction, there's some a sci-fi, a dystopian, yeah, one that's by Amanda Lauer. It's even a time travel has
Oh,
element in it.
that's fun.
So they're exciting adventures, and often some of them have to do with some of our characters in our other books, which is a great way to either get to know these characters better or get a taste for different authors and different stories. So it's really a good thing. I'm excited about it,
Good.
and hopefully some other families will be able to discover it.
That is such a great idea, and I love that you bring in all the different genres. Like, some people all right, I'm a very good example of making up my mind about a certain genre. Like, I didn't think I would like historical fiction. Do you know what? I read a book because my friend Stephanie Lansom wrote. Well, actually, let's try this the other way. I met Stephanie Lansom and found out she wrote biblical fiction, and I loved what she had done in the wine books. And just said, I'm going to read one of her books. Well, I can't get enough of biblical fiction, and this is a person who never read. Just not a. Got my degree in English, and then I stopped reading. I'm like, that's so much reading. I am done. So I hadn't read fiction in a really long time, and if you had told me your favorite genre is going to be biblical fiction, I would have said you're crazy. But it is.
Yeah.
But it came from discovering it in a different book and then saying the same like you're saying. I found this little sample in a wine book and I thought, I really like this person's writing. I like these characters, and then finding this in a bigger book and then gobbling up as much as I can. So this is really a great way for parents to also help their kids discover new genres and new authors and things to read. And I also have to say, before you tell me a little bit more about Ashes, that I also enjoy reading young adult fiction because sometimes one, it's maybe smaller and easier to get through. I know it's going to be safe. Like, I love reading Christian and Catholic adult fiction as well, but sometimes I just enjoy a nice light read or an interest. I mean, I say light meaning it's not like the
Mhm.
500-page tomes that I seem to see for adults to read. I'm just not that good of a reader. Anyway, so um, this is this out now? Where can we purchase it?
Yeah, it just came out 2 days ago, so this is perfect. And
Mhm.
so you can check our website. There's links there, Catholic Teen Books website. We actually have a giveaway going on for a few more days, but it's also on Amazon or wherever you purchase your books. So Ashes, Visible and Invisible by Catholic Teen Books. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's such a that's why I love these anthologies. It really gives everyone a little taste of different authors' styles, genres, whatnot. And so you don't have to put a big purchase in to try out different ones. You can kind of get the one book and then see which one's stories catch your attention and so forth. So it's a really they've been so fun to write and work with the other authors, even though we each create our own stories. We kind of work together in the whole process, and it's such a joy to be working with all of them.
I don't know if people realize that as a writer, you should never ever edit your own work because did you know? You probably knew this, Leslie. I'm talking today with Leslea Wahl. We're talking about the Catholic Teen Books new anthology, Ashes. Um, did you know that your brain knows what it wants to say and knows how it should look? So oftentimes it sees that comma, it sees that um, and word, or it reads and it puts in the grammar that it needs to be there, even if it isn't truly there. I often read out loud when I'm editing, which is also a great tool for anybody who's got a child in college or high school that needs to write papers. Have them read it out loud to themselves because it really helps you see it. So writers should never edit themselves, and I really enjoy, in a sick way, having somebody tear apart my work because I know it's going to make me a better writer. And I think sometimes we get nervous if we don't want people to criticize what we're doing, any kind of work, really, but to see it as a way of growing and becoming better at that skill is really a gift. But I want to know, Leslie, what is your story about? I'm sure you wrote something.
Mhm.
Um, I so tell me a little bit about what you've included in the anthology.
Thanks. Yeah, this story was really special for a couple of reasons. So, um, the main character I decided to write about is actually in a new book that'll be coming out in June. So, this will be the first
Oh,
little
fun.
taste of her. She's actually a minor character in my book, Into the Spotlight. But now she'll have her own adventure in June, actually on a cruise ship, which is will be really fun. But
Oh,
so,
that is
but she has a faith journey that I thought was really interesting when I started thinking about what I wanted to write for Lent. She isn't Catholic, doesn't have much of a faith, but through her friend, she decides, that she wants to become Catholic. And, I'm a convert myself. And so over the years, whenever through the RCIA program and they bring everybody up who wants is going to journey through to become Catholic, every once in a while there's a teenager. And I'm always just amazed that
yeah.
um, the fortitude and the strength they have to make this decision, because it's a process and you have to really be serious about it. So I thought that would be kind of a fun little thing to explore in this story. And I did, but at the same time, my father was very sick. He was in hospice, and so I just was not feeling creative at all. It was really hard for me to come up with anything. So I wrote something, sent it off to a couple of the other authors, and they kind of were like, "Well, there's not a lot here," which is what I knew, but I didn't know what to do about it. And actually, Corinna Turner was the one. She's like, "Is there a way you can use what's going on with your dad somehow? You know, your pain there to incorporate it into the story." And it just came to me. And so I made him a character in my book. And so,
Oh,
um,
that's so
so this
sweet.
character Liz meets a older gentleman and kind of strengthens her faith through their interaction. And so it was really sweet. And then I was actually able to read the story to him before he passed away. So yeah, so this one always means a lot to me. I think it'll always be a really special one.
Oh, that is so sweet. What a way to honor his memory, his life, his legacy of faith. I wrote Encountering Signs of Faith. That's my new book out from Ave Maria Press. And one of the things that I was asking people to share was what the legacy of faith they hoped to leave one day. And I think clearly your dad has left that for you. Was he a Catholic, or just
Um,
a man of great faith, or
yeah.
or
No, I actually grew up in the Mennonite church, but
Oh, neat.
after I married, and after I had started having children, and my oldest was getting about to the stage, we were attending Catholic church, and I was sending the kids to Catholic school because I really felt strong about it. But something about giving up my own faith that I grew up in was kind of like a stumbling block. And but when he was going to go through First Communion, I just was like, I'm making this is really important. I knew it was important, but here I haven't done it myself, and so I made the decision to switch, and it was had already started, but sometimes that is kind of a heritage or a part of who you are, and sometimes it's a little bit of a hard thing to give up. You feel like you're giving something up, but I realize you're not. You're gaining the truth of the church and so forth, and so it was wonderful. And yeah, my parents were very strong Christians always. They were a wonderful example growing up. And my
Mhm.
dad was, they both were very supportive of me becoming Catholic. And my dad especially was like my, biggest fan in my writing. He was always sharing my books with everybody. So,
Oh.
yeah, so I feel really blessed, because not everybody has that in the background. But yeah, thanks for asking about it.
Oh, that's so neat. I always love talking to you, Leslie. You have so this I think obviously you are an incredible fiction writer because I think you're a beautiful storyteller and you see the world in such a beautiful way. And I'm just so grateful to know you and to be able to share you with my friends because I really just adore you and I adore your writing. Tell us just before we finish up here about some of your other books. Blind Side, right? Is that the name of
Mhm.
it's one of my favorites, but I'm terrible. I can't even remember my own title. I've been doing interviews reading the title of my own book. So just quickly tell us a little bit about some of your books and I'll make sure the links get into our show notes.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, The Perfect Blind Side was my very first book, and Extreme Blind Side is a sequel. I've actually started working on the third one. It's taken a while, but other ideas had come, so that's been fun to get back to those characters. And then Where You Lead is a standalone. It's set in Washington, D.C., kind of a mystery, trying to uncover, search for clues for lost Confederate gold. So that's fun. As you can tell, I always love mysteries and adventures. So all my books have all that. And then my series that I talked about is called Finding Faith series, and the Into the Spotlight came out in the fall. It was actually used to be called An Unexpected Role, and then I changed publishers and titles, and so it's a little confusing. But then it became the first in the series, so Into the Spotlight, and the second will be called Charting the Course, which is the one with this character I was talking about. And so, yeah, I have a bunch of little ideas, and the picture book you had me chat about recently too. So, yeah, it's lots going on in my brain. Sometimes it's hard to get it out on the paper, though. It takes a while.
I understand that. I have literally bins of journals because I've been writing now in a journal pretty regularly for 17 years. And when I
Wow.
wrote my last book, it was so fun to take the journals one by one or two by two or seven by seven. Anyway, to adoration with a ton of sticky notes and just kind of look for the things that related because I told the story of my daughter's adoption and my using sacramentals to bring her back to the faith, to bring her to the faith, excuse me, to explain the faith to her. But it's just really fun sometimes to go back and, anybody who said, oh, I'm not a writer, I don't want to write for publication, I don't have an imagination, I really recommend grabbing a journal, a notebook, and just spend some time with it in adoration or in your own quiet time. Because I think everybody has something to say, and maybe nobody else will read it. But for you to be able to go back and at least see the growth that God has done in your life is a real gift. So I'm a big fan of
That's
journaling, and I really recommend grabbing a journal, just giving it a shot because you never know, right, Leslie? Because
exactly. I
if
know
you
the
never
ideas for my books just kind of come to me, as you're like writing other things. So yeah, it's just is amazing how the Holy Spirit works.
Absolutely. Just put pen to paper and you never know what God is going to bring out. Can you just remind me of the children's book? I mean I can picture the dog in his
Yeah,
little Arnie hat. I can't
yeah,
remember the name of it.
yeah. It's called To Serve and Protect. Yeah, with Yeah, my dog who, yeah, inspired that book, trying to be brave and protect her family.
I love that. Oh my goodness, you're so creative. I will have the links to everything. The new anthology, Ashes, some Catholic teen books, the link to Catholic teen books, and the links to Leslie's website and her amazing books. Lesley, thank you so much for making the time to talk with me today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's always so much fun.
Well, I wish everybody a great preparation for Lent. There's lots and lots of books out there. Of course, I'm going to ask you to consider journeying this Lent with Encountering Signs of Faith, My Unexpected Journey with the Sacramentals, the Saints, and the Abundant Grace of God. It's all about the devotions and traditions of our church. Perfect way to enter and journey through Lent. We've been talking with Leslea Wahl, Catholic Teen Books. You have been listening to A Seeking Heart with Allison Jigris. God bless.